ladies and gentlemen, keeping in mind the tight schedule we have here at the Emerging Young Leaders program and respecting the time of everyone who's already present inside the hall, I'd like to start the second half of today's program. And we would now begin with our keynote address. I'd like to introduce Ms. Nurain Jana. She is currently the Group Vice Chair at Hotels and Resorts Investment Maldives, an international multi-industry group spanning hotels and resorts development, construction technology, marine products, and investment services. She's also the founder of Rehendi Consulting, a global social enterprise innovating executive leadership coaching and consulting with multinational corporations on their environmental, social, and governance (ESG) strategies. Please join me in welcoming with a thundering round of applause our keynote speaker for the day, Ms. Jana.
Assalamu alaikum, good afternoon, Bajare Duahe, and kia ora if there are any New Zealanders in the room. I just want to firstly thank and acknowledge our host nation, FCAN, and all of those of us that have shown us wonderful hospitality here as we've been here at the conference in Kathmandu, Nepal. Thank you very much. Distinguished guest delegates, leaders of today. I always hate when young people are described as leaders of tomorrow, so you are the leaders today. My job here is really to acknowledge the work of the emerging young leaders. Well done on your presentations this afternoon. Following on from my introduction, I want to share a little bit about myself. So both my mum and my dad and all of my grandparents are from the small island country of the Maldives. They are from the south and the southeast of the country. And as we acknowledge all of our ancestors that we bring into the room and all of our forefathers that have gone before us, I want to reflect on this proverb that comes from the indigenous New Zealand language, Māori, that says, ka mua, ka muri. So this means that we walk backwards into the future. So hold on to that proverb as I share a little bit on this topic today. So walking backwards in the future refers to really acknowledging our ancestors' work and knowing what has been built before us by the leaders that have gone before, and then moving forward with those lessons in mind, not forgetting any of that, not discarding or reinventing the wheel, and moving forward into what the future challenges hold for us and creating and building our own ideas on top of that. So it is both an honor and a privilege to address you here for the Emerging Young Leaders program that was founded during the 45th convention of the International Federation of Asian and Western Pacific Contractors Association, IFAWPCA, that was held in the Maldives. And I know this was an idea conceptualized by my dad and your former media past president, Mr. Muhammad Ali Jannah, who asked me to extend his sincere apologies for not being able to join you today. He is very passionate about this program, and his vision really was that he was seeing, through his leadership of IFAWPCA, he was seeing there was a lack of young leaders coming through, and this organization has a really rich history. It was founded, I believe, in the 1950s, and so he saw that bringing in a program such as this would ensure that the candle of this organization, this esteemed global network, would not be extinguished as long as we ensure that young leaders are part of the organization. So, with that, I want to also acknowledge the the UN and UNESCO kind of panel discussion that happened this morning, we talked a lot about the 2030 agenda, and I want to focus today on keeping in mind that we're walking backwards into the future, the idea that we are facing a lot of challenges. So the theme of the conference is partnering for sustainable infrastructure. And if we think about the 2030 agenda, this is really about partnerships. It's about addressing the challenges that we are facing as a world. There is geopolitical conflict, there's climate vulnerability and environmental challenges, and there is also the fact that we are a globalizing, ever-diverse population with many, many differences that can be an advantage if we lean into that. So on this note, I want to ask how many of us, I'm going to name and shame here, how many of us are under the age of 35 in the room? Nice. How many of us are 25 at heart in the room? Awesome. It's really, I asked the question because 18 at heart, wonderful. Some of us are 16 at heart, so that's great. I mentor a lot of young people in my charity. I have a charity in New Zealand. I'm working on one in the Maldives as well. I mentor a lot of young people, and they tell me I'm very old. So I wanted to ask the question because I wanted to ask, what does young actually mean? Because if young means that we are young at age, but we step into organizations and systems that have been set up and we just continue to steward those same structures and organizations, what does young mean for us? So to me, I want to encourage the emerging young leaders in the room today, all of us that put up their hand to say that they're under 35, or even the ones that are young at heart to say, there is real importance in looking at the systems and structures that we have in place today and considering whether they are fit for purpose for the future and not just to steward a system that has been in existence simply because it's been there. The construction industry is one of the oldest. We've heard that this organization, this esteemed organization, has a rich history. The construction industry is much, much older. It's one of the first industries that existed in the world, which also means that we haven't fully taken advantage of the potential that there is for collaboration to ensure that we are bringing in the technological, but also the generational and intergenerational potential into our workforce and into how we build for the future. So about a quarter of the population, the global population, is between the ages of 15 to 35. That's about 1.8 billion. Does that surprise anybody? No, we knew that already? Great. So out of that, the median age of a construction project manager is how much? Anyone want to guess? Average age. What was that? 40? Yeah? Any other guesses? About 40? So the median age is about 45. So we'd like it to be, you know, a lot more diverse than that. So we want to give those opportunities. And the reason I say that is because we hear about generation, you know, we've heard about millennials, we've heard about boomers in the workforce, and there's been a little bit of conflict. But have we heard about Generation Alpha? Who's heard of Generation Alpha? One person? Two people? Okay. So Generation Alpha comes after Generation Z, and they're going to cause even more problems because they are what we call multi-potentialites. They don't like the structures that exist, and that's a really good thing. It's the opportunity to bring them in and say, here's the knowledge I've learned, what do we want to build together? So they have multi-skills, they have multiple portfolios of careers that they want to pursue. They are purpose-led. So the theme of today, for example, is really on point for them. They want social justice, economic justice, and they want environmental conservation. They are also multi and intergenerational. So I've met so many people here today that have taken over second generation, third generation, fourth generation family businesses. And most of us are maybe educated elsewhere, and we've come back home, what we call the boomerang generation. So these are the opportunities there, and I'm speaking to the young at heart in the room. These are the opportunities to draw them back in, to say, actually, I'd like to learn from you. How can I help you learn as well? So we talk a lot about technology, and I think technology is very important, and it is a piece of disruption that happens because if we're not adopting technology, we will be left behind. But what is the driving force behind AI and automation? And our EYL young leader from Singapore talked about all of the opportunities for technology. But what actually does it mean to implement technology, and how can we do that well? How we do that well is by bringing people together. It's about bringing this Generation Alpha and Gen Z. I don't know if you've heard a Generation Alpha talk. I mentor these young kids, and I don't know what they're saying. They talk in some sort of, I don't know, TikTok slang or something like that. But that is needed in the workplace, and we need a translator for them because they are our consumers, but they are also the next stewards of the world as well. Secondly, I want to also throw out the statistic that about 73% of Generation Z, 73%, will not work or will look for a company that is ethical and sustainable in terms of their job search, but also in terms of their consumer power. So these are our future investors. That is the majority of the future investors. And if we think about the 1.8 billion that we thought about, that is a real driving force. So that is the imperative that we should also have, other than being good, upstanding citizens. That is also a commercial imperative that we should have to ensure that we bring these young people together. Lastly, I want to talk about strategic partnerships and making sure that we are building that global network together. And this is for those of us that are the emerging young leaders. I like to think about my board of advisors, and again, going back to the fact that we are walking backwards into the future. As you step into the next phases of your career, as you step into the next phases where you're building your multi-potentialite jazz musician, guitar-playing careers alongside of the construction, make sure that you have a board of advisors for you personally. And I think there are many, many people in this room for you that you could invite to be part of that board of advisors. So they can advise you of their knowledge that they have had in a really long career. They can also add industry knowledge, and they can advise you of when you stumble and maybe have that bit of imposter syndrome. So I'll then move on with that bit of advice to sharing a little bit of a personal story. So I met many of you, IFAWPCA delegates, at the 45th convention that happened in the Maldives last year. I landed in the Maldives after 10 years of being away, so I hadn't even come back for a holiday. And I jumped right into the program. I was invited by our immediate past president to be the Master of Ceremonies. And the journey that I've had since then, I came for a holiday. I've told many people this. I never intended to come back home, as it were, to where my family was from. Never thought that I would take over in the family business. Never thought I would work with my dad, and actually never thought I could work with Dad, which I think many of you know why that might be. So the lessons here are many for both sides, the youngest heart and our younger ones, is that we went through, who's heard of the 5 stages of teaming? No? There's a really great book that talks about the 5 stages of teaming. So it goes from norming, which is you're kind of dancing around each other. It might be what you're doing if you meet someone new at this conference. So you're kind of getting to know the person, seeing if you're the right fit, what are their values, how do they talk to you. And then going into the storming phase, which when you are thrown together to work together, you start butting heads. You start, when you're different generations, or if you're a different value set, different culture, you start butting heads where someone wants to talk ideas out and you just want to go quietly and think about that. So we went through all of the stages, Dad and I went through all of the stages of norming, storming, talking about it, all the way to teaming. So teaming is where we partner up. We know that we are working on the same goal together with the same set of values. We might be different leaders, we might come from different generations, we might add different strengths, different skill sets. Dad started the company when he was 19 years of age. He unfortunately had to leave school, and it's a wonderful achievement for him today. But I know he wanted education, but he didn't get the opportunity to. Whereas I've had a Western education, I've gone through organisations that are really large, and I've seen process. So we butted heads for a long time, and it's a year today, and I'm really glad to say that if you've interacted with us both together, we're a really great team, but it wasn't like that at first. So this is the opportunity to lean into that. If you are working in a multi-generational, multi-diverse, multicultural environment, it's about leaning into the conflict as well, and knowing that the future of today and the potential future of the 2030 agenda as well rests on us being able to work together to bring that diversity together and to really draw out the strengths and see the best in all generations and in all of us together. So I hope I've left a couple of minutes spare, because I wanted the opportunity to take questions, but I want to thank all of us that have supported the Emerging Young Leaders program. I want to thank Dad for having the courage and the leadership and initiative, Mr. Jana. I know many of us love him, so I want to thank him publicly to say that he's not just, doing these initiatives publicly, but also it is something that he takes into heart, into nurturing us kids, but also nurturing the young generation. He did ask me to announce that we will have a formal announcement later, but he did ask me to announce that he would be looking to set up a Emerging Young Leaders Award, which is a scholarship for further development for our young leaders that we have seen today. So look forward to hearing more about that. I want to end, I started with a quote, walking backwards into the future. I want to end with this quote that gives you hopefully a little bit of fire under your feet to action some of the things that I've talked about today. And this is from the Secretary General of the United Nations, Mr. Antonio Guterres. He said, "Unless we act now, the 2030 Agenda will become an epitaph for a world that might have been." So with that, thank you very much, and I encourage you all to have those discussions, to lean into the discomfort, to mentor and coach each other and learn from each other. Thank you very much.
Thank you to our keynote speaker, Ms. Noreen. I think she definitely deserves a big, big round of applause for that fabulous keynote filled with so many inspiring messages and tips, and I 100% agree that youth are the leaders of today, because we ought to recognize and celebrate the fact that the youth are not waiting for tomorrow to make a difference. They're stepping up, they're showing up, they're leading initiatives and creating impactful changes right now. Their influence and contributions in various fields, including sustainable infrastructure, are steering us towards a more sustainable future. So thank you to our keynote speaker. And now, ladies and gentlemen, next on the agenda is an engaging panel discussion featuring some of Nepal's bright and emerging young leaders. These individuals have been instrumental in shaping the construction sector, the development sector, and are here today to share their invaluable experience and insight with all of us. So please join me in welcoming our esteemed panelists on stage. I'd like to start with Mr. Nicholas Pandey. He was the second vice president from 2016 to 2018 at IFAWPCA, where he strengthened the international collaboration amongst builders from various countries, and as the founder president of youth community for Nepalese contractors. He has also dedicated his efforts to the growth of young Nepali professionals in the construction industry. And he's also busy wearing the hat of the chairperson of the event management committee for the 46th IFAWPCA convention. Ladies and gentlemen, a big round of applause for our panelist, Mr. Nicholas Pandey. I would now like to invite on stage Mr. Anand Subedi. He is the director of one of the top construction companies of Nepal, Tundi Construction Private Limited, with a vast experience in different segments of infrastructure sector. His involvement in the infrastructure development project covers the project life cycle from project identification to the various operation phases. We're extremely delighted to have Mr. Subedi with us as our panelist. I would now like to move on to Ms. Abhigya Malla and would like to invite her on stage. She represents the voice of youth and women in the energy sector through her association with hydropower development, construction and consulting companies. She has proven her work as the director of hydro construction company named High Himalaya Hydro Construction 3HC, which is a leading construction company which has completed 35 hydropower projects in 13 years. And she aims to continue the legacy in the hydro and construction sector for the betterment of Nepal. We're delighted to have Ms. Malla with us. Last but definitely not the least, I'd like to invite Mr. Abhushan Jyoti Kangsakar on stage, who is the CEO of GV, Nepal's fastest growing and largest homegrown e-commerce platform. He's also the president of FCAN Nepal and managing director of Devajyoti Group. He oversees various other subsidiaries that fall under the group that covers a wide range of sectors from heavy equipment trade to the exclusive national distributor of FCAN Nepal. Excited and very delighted to have Mr. Kangsakar with us. And now to bring them all together, to bind them all together and bring out the best from all of them, may I please one more time invite Mr. Anil Chitrakar on stage. He's a social entrepreneur and president of Siddharth Inc. and in my opinion, one of the fabulous moderators of Nepal. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Chitrakar one more time on stage. And now the floor is all yours.
So you know why Sadisha thanks me. I think I just make our life easy. So, you know, we have a panel, and so it's a little late in the day, but we really have to make this useful because, you know, the whole issue of leadership, I think is something that we all, you know, aspire for, something that we feel our societies really need. And so here we have 4 leaders, you know, for each of the sectors. So what I'm going to do is, you know, without boring everybody to death, so here's a Bangladeshi construction person, you know, who went from jazz to construction. So maybe the first round I want to hear from each one of you is what was your turning point that got you into, you know, the sector? So Nicholas, why don't you start? So what was that turning moment,
Hi.
you know, when you said, you know, this is the sector I want to be in?
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Mr. Chitrakar. Well, I was not really a rock star because I tried, actually. I tried guitar, but I was not good at it. Maybe my fingers. But yeah, I really like the film industry. I did a few music videos, and after that, my father talked me down and said, like, you want to become a contractor or a model? If you want to become a model, you can leave outside. If you want to stay in this house, then you have to be a contractor. And that was my turning point.
Go ahead.
Thank you for having me. Okay, I was more into real estate development. I was in Sydney for quite a long year, and I mostly wanted to do big infrastructure project. But however, since my family, in generations, we are into hydro construction, I never thought I would be a hydropower developer or a contractor. But when I was back, soon after that, there was COVID going on, so I didn't know actually what I wanted to do really, and I'm from accounting and finance background. It isn't even engineering. Most of them think that I am from it, but So I would say COVID was my turning point to know a little more about hydropower sector, and then I haven't looked back. Thank you.
Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Mr. Chitrakar. Uh, well, when I was boy, like I was, growing in a family where my dad was like young contractors back then. So lots of stories shared and lots of discussion that I happened to witness actually drive me to be into construction sector from the very beginning. But now I'm looking for a turning point whereby I can complete this and then get into another phase of the life. Yes.
So I'm not really directly from the construction sector, but we're supporters in the construction sector through construction machinery. But my transition, I think the word transition would be probably I played music in college, wasn't very good at it. Don't judge me by my hair. So had a band, but again, not very good at it. But I think my turning point moving towards business was probably a lot of, I think as a young boy, I was always interested in building things, whether it's a building, whether it's a company. I think that's the love for building things, whether playing games that had a lot of strategy, building, etc., etc. I think that is what led me to understand that I was a better builder than anything else. I think that led me to come back to Nepal, which is, at the time, 2012, was still trying to enter into a certain set of development after having come out of a bit of 10 or 12 years of chaos. I think that was generally where I turned, and then I think into the construction machinery business. I think, like I said, I always loved buildings, how buildings look, skyscrapers. Somebody mentioned skyscrapers. I still love them. So I think probably love for those things led me in some way, maybe towards that.
Sure. No, it's wonderful to hear this because, again, we're talking about a sector, where the human resources that will be required to meet the, sort of the aspirations is going to be huge. And so it's really, heartwarming to think that people, are actually entering the sector. And so young people entering the sector itself is good news, right? So on this point, so the word leadership. So what I wanted to do was just take a quick round here when, you're being labeled as a leader, right? So I think we should remove the word emerging leaders because if they're already leaders. But the word leadership, I think, is something that we need to explore a little bit more, okay? So now in your work, in your experience, what do you think, you would label as a leader? Because I'm sure there are many attributes of a leader. And I'm sure there were instances in your life, that basically had to bring the leadership quality in you, out into the open. And then probably it's a self-realization that I can lead, right? So can you share that moment or that, sort of the realization of what leadership, in your particular business, really means? So Nicholas, would you like to start? So when did this happen? How do you look at it?
Yeah, when I did my MBA, the course name was Leadership Development. So I always used to think that whether we have to be a born leader or you can become a leader after you're born. So for me, I think it's more like the leadership quality, some of it is already inside you, right? So, and how you hone it and how you develop it matters. For me, if I'm like leadership is a very abstract subject for me. But when it comes to construction, I would like to take an example of my own father, right? So he's someone like, he somehow like his human resources, they kind of like fall back in the rank and file under him. And he's a very natural leader. He doesn't need to do too hard to motivate people. So I'm very different than him. Having said that, like, I think one of the key points to his success is because he's a very natural leader. He somehow gets the right person, and somehow that right person never leaves him. So in our company, we have people actually who are as old, who have been working in our company for like 35, 40 years, starting from a service vehicle driver The driver who I came with, he's in our company for like 25 years already. So I always, believe that some people are like born leaders, right? Having said that, there is an immense generation gap between that generation and this generation, right? I'm someone who was told that now it's the time of slave leadership, right? But it's kind of tricky question depending on the culture, like in which part of the world you live. We can go there later, but I like to stop now.
I actually second Mr. Nicholas because I would say the same thing happened with my father's experience as well. When he was in Butol Power Company, he had the same person. When he moved to Himal Hydro, the same people moved to Himal Hydro. And when he opened his own firm, the same people moved there. So it's also, again, the same people who were, but that time was different because working in limited companies and also with I would say limited fields were there, but right now we have an option. We have a lot of option to diversify. For me personally, when it happened was when I realized I was just sitting in the head office and the construction work is going on all the site areas. So what I realized is going actually to the site areas, working with people, seeing how they work, actually helped me realize more about construction sector, and that's why I decided to stay, though I'm not from this background. So I would say working with together is what I believe is the leadership, because nowadays just instructing people, I don't think people have their own ideologies, and also letting them have a freedom to explore as well and give them a space. We no longer do micromanagement. I think giving them a space, working with people brings the best out of people, and if everyone is leader, you don't have to manage people. So that actually changed, and I'm more with people and more on sites, and I really like going outside and just not staying in the head office now, yeah.
Very good. Please,
there was some leadership session of studies in my, like study abroad program thing. But when I came back, it is quite easy for us where like your father has already done the initial hard part and then the company is formed. You just have a chair waiting for you to take it over and then start showing your, tricks there. So, initially, involving into the projects and then getting around with people and then making some targets and then trying to achieve that, and involving, with your team gives you that sense of feeling that, maybe you can lead it in a better way to get your things done. But yes, as Abhiga said, I second that, initially you try to put in your ideas to them and then try to see if, it works or not. And then slowly you started realizing that, it is not always your idea that you should work on. Rather, be open to listen to the people of your team and make a collective kind of, goal for all of them to achieve it. That would give you a more mileage into achieving these goals smoothly. So, through your process, there could be lots of, transition that you grow through and all. So that is one of the idea that kind of gave me a real feeling. And I really enjoyed doing that part of leadership and then see how the things work rather than imposing your ideas and becoming that kind of leader, right?
So I think transition point. So anyway, I think anybody who has a few followers or is leading a team is a leader, basically. I don't know. Then when the world calls you a leader, probably you're recognized as a successful person who leads a team. So thank you for recognizing some of us and all of us here. But for me, I think personally, what is a good leader? Some of us have shared our experiences. For me, I came into business. I had to start looking at a team. I think that's how leadership grew. How did I grow into it? I don't know if I'm really good at it. What I try to do is be authentic as much as possible. I think that's, for me, is important. I don't know what makes you a great leader. I think it's different. Depends on your temperament, depends on your characteristics. Like Nicholas mentioned, if you already have the personality where you can influence people just by a few words, you don't have to try that much. But if you have a very mild personality, but you are somebody who can convince people, and you try harder, I think you can lead the team. There's no question about it. For me, I don't think I'm the kind of person who seems very intimidating to that point. I don't try to be. I try to be authentic, be real. But I think what's very important for me as a leader is to reassess where I am at any moment, see I'm doing what I say, or walk the path that I speak. That's very important. I think consistency is absolutely important. For me, that has been very important. And a few leadership lessons that my grandfather has always told me, that sticks around much longer than a lot of other things. But one particular book I had read a long time ago, it's called The Leadership Engine by Noel Tichy. It was when I was in college, I'd read it. But leadership as a teachable point of view, I think that translates into whether we can translate our vision, whether we can translate our strategies correctly to our team. That's important. If we, as leaders, if we are not great teachers, if we cannot translate or communicate properly, no matter how great a personality you have, we fail to bring a team together to achieve a singular vision. I think that's has been important to me, could be very different for different people.
Okay. So look what the moderator has to do. Now, if somebody was to ask me to write a book based on this panel, so a leader is somebody who motivates. So this came out very clearly. The second is somebody who basically has a very loyal following. And so I think you mentioned that people don't leave you, right? And so people not leaving you would be a very strong leadership quality. Now, this whole thing about a generational learning, and so the situations also basically define who a leader is. And so as things change, leadership emerges. But one thing that also came very clearly here is that if you have to do things with the team, then you realize your leadership qualities. So I think what came out very clearly was that giving instructions is not the way to become a leader, but to actually join people in doing what we have to do would be a leadership quality. Now the next one is basically I would say the ability to bring the best in people is what you said. So the ability to bring out the best in people was a key. The next one was, I think, really a people skill, where you can put forward your idea, but the ability to listen and find the best ideas from the team, and that you defined as leadership. So it's not imposing your own ideas, but being part of a team means, listening to others so that you can actually find, the best ideas. Now, the other one that I found was, to become a leader, you have to have a team. And it sounds very obvious, but I think, this is very clear that if you're not working as a team, then there's no chance of you becoming a leader, right? So this is very clear. But I think authenticity, came out very strongly, that if you're not authentic, then you're going to lose your way at some point. And then, basically, the word, you mentioned the word, walk the talk, right? And so that ability to not just say things, but actually demonstrate it, by doing things would be one. But the last key point that I just wanted to also highlight was that, if you cannot translate your vision and communicate it to the rest of the people, then you're not a leader either. So it's a lot, right? So, I mean, this is just amazing, when you do a panel and you ask people to jot down, their own ideas, it's very strong, how we can define it. Now, let's move a little bit into Nepal, into the construction, area. So you have construction, you have hydropower, you have, equipment. So here we live in a country, where in 1990, just to give you a little background, so we were down to 26.2% of Nepal being forested. So we had lost a lot of forest cover, and we are down to 26.2. So today, Nepal proudly says we are 45% forest cover. So despite, and I'm using the word despite, all the construction and all the things we complain, we've been able to construct and also save the forest. Right? So we've been able to generate a lot of hydropower and yet triple the tiger population in Nepal. So I think there's a whole generation that realizes that this is not either or. We can take the two together. So I just want to ask each of the panelists, so in terms of your work, in terms of the design of your work, how do you feel about taking the sustainability goals along with your construction goals? And so it could be water, it could be air, it could be climate, doesn't matter. But how do you see the two, actually going together? Because this obviously is the theme, that we've set for this conference. So just give us your, initial thoughts about how we move ahead without compromising or not taking an either or stand. So how can we take this together? Nicholas, you want to start?
Yeah, why not?
So this is the fun about being a moderator. You can put people on the spot.
I think, we have a lot of guidelines. Like Saurav from YCNC rightly mentioned, we have very few private projects, but we have a lot of projects funded by the multilateral agencies. And they have a lot of, checklist for environment. So we're already doing, I think we are already doing enough when it comes to safeguarding the environment issues. Well, there are a few things I think that can be improved from our side. Like sometimes we put it in paper, but it does not exactly translate when you're working, right? So when you are racing against time, then there's some sort of those environmental guidelines that we are lagging. But having said that, you rightly said, we have a lot of green forest in Nepal, and despite all the construction going around, they have actually grown in numbers. So I guess like the younger generation, our keynote speaker who's not here right now, she rightly mentioned that the alpha generation, I have a daughter, she's 10 years old, and she talks about environment. She tells me to recycle plastic goods. She tells me not to buy plastic stuff and all that. So I think Nepal is in safe hands when it comes to environment. That's my perception.
Sure, very good.
So basically, since I'm more focusing into hydro and development, so I would say in the construction-related activities, now people are aware because every rainy season we have one corridor hit. And we know the importance of not making structure in the floodplains now. So because Nepal is also prone to multi-hazard risk, we are actually in the top 10 nation because we are prone to multiple risks like landslide, flood, earthquake, gulf issues. And because of that, we need to be really careful in construction of infrastructure. We recommend, especially for large hydropower projects that are building now, we recommend underground structure because that is more sustainable for us, though we also have a moving mass problem because our Himalayas are fairly young. So for that, we need to check the faulty zones because of earthquake, and we are aware of those things now, and we hire international consultants also to solve sort of issues like that. And we also work in guidelines trying to make powerhouses away from the floodplains, which also has been a problem that has stricken a lot of hydropower projects. So a lot with the infrastructure and brainstorming, and also getting the technology of a lot of other countries so that we are safeguarded. But then cost is also a problem. Like, all these things sounds good, but then we have to consider cost also in mind. However, in days to come, if we are planning to build larger infrastructure projects, we do need international funding. And for international funding, we really need to align our company's objective with the Sustainable Development Goals. We don't have an option. So basically, all the bonds, green bonds, employment bonds, social bond, everything that we talk about will be directly guiding our company's objective if we want to get infrastructure funded in days to come. So it's no more an option. And I think Nepal is doing pretty good because we naturally don't have other sort of pollutant resources. Our is clean, green, sustainable, resource. However, rooftop can be a concept, rooftop solar can be a concept. Australia every day is adding almost 2.7 gigawatt of electricity by rooftop structure, and we have the similar population and climate as well, especially in the coastal region. So we're advocating a lot in complementing hydro as well, because maybe storage and reservoirs are talk in the future. We don't know the consequence of it. So I'd say a lot of technical development is happening, and we are moving with the change.
When we, as a contractors, go into the field and start doing our construction projects, the environment things become like, very kind of hindrance for us. There are, as sort of this afternoon mentioned about the environment clearances, the project preparedness, whether they are like, nicely done, all the forest cutting has been already completed or not. So these kind of things kind of like, stop us from doing the construction. So we as a contractors do not take it into a very, like positive, productive way of, it's like, as you said, either construction or kind of thing. But the preparedness of the project is so very important in this. And then when we have to realize that, if it is not for the environment, then we will not have those infrastructures sustainable. So, I would like to share one, experience that we do. When we develop our hydropower projects, we had to cut like, more than 1,000 trees. And for the number of trees that we had to cut, we had to even plant like, 25,000 numbers of trees. So that's probably one of the reasons why we have like, more forest areas now. And as we develop more hydropowers, then we have more chances of having more forest areas in the future as well. And like as a developer, when you start realizing that, the plantation of those trees are so very important for the sustainability of the infrastructure that you are building, so that, it could have, it will minimize the impact of flood and landslide over your, infrastructures created, then you have that urgency, and then you have that, kind of like, then this becomes kind of a prerequisite for your project to be sustainable. And you'll be more motivated to do these works alongside with the construction projects. So yes, I think like, we have to understand from the very beginning that if we do not care about the environment, those infrastructures are not going to be lasting. And the road that, doing road without a biological work and bio-integrated works are not going to be sustainable, because then we have to again go there and then, do a bit of repair in the defective place, which probably you will hit more than planting the trees in the very initial days. So yeah, I think like we don't have a choice.
Since again, I would not, I think they're the experts in their own field. I think two areas that from my experience and from a larger experience, I think sustainability goals are great. They should be there. Especially, I think local sustainability is important, like a project sustainability because of, to safeguard from future floods are important. I think economics also needs to be considered. Sometimes as a developing country, because it sounds good, politically correct to say, sustainability is important. If we compare all our sustainability goals with some of the developed nations, it's impossible for us to manage that, because a cup of noodles is 3 times the price in the US than it is here. If we are going to build 20% less roads because we are going to increase the prices of roads by 20%, the cost of that noodle is going to go up because it has to reach some place, sometime, at some point, and it's going to increase. So as a developing country, we will have to balance that scale, but the ones that affect us locally, that project or our population, definitely those are the goals that we need to look at. Those are the costs we will have to take. Now, my experience from the construction machinery aspect, I think here, another sustainability for a country like ours where we have no production or refinement of fuel. Fuel is also a non-sustainable element in this country. Electricity is our own production to a point, but I think whether it's electric machineries in the future, or how do we use more fuel-efficient machinery, how do we manage to use newer machinery, we export the older machineries out of this country, which burns more fuel, pollutes the country even more, because as the engine gets older, it is less fuel efficient. If we are able to do that, I was just calculating a small, from the data that Saurav shared. Saurav shared a data, was about $750 million of construction happens a year in this country, $750 million, if I'm correct, somewhere close to that. If we assume 60% of that is road construction, and if we assume 40% of road construction cost actually goes out in fuel, we're talking about 17 million, and 10% saving in fuel actually leads to $17 million savings in just fuel imports. That's just $17 million for us in terms of our larger $12 billion worth of imports that we do every year. That's almost 1.5% that we save in foreign exchange. That has become one of the key driving factors into our discussion for the last 1 year, which probably changes now, but I think the last 1.5 years, that's what we've been discussing. I think sustainability is also about those things. We've focused a lot on the other aspects, but this aspect, because I'm from that area, that's something that we could focus on as well.
So very good. So if you look at your watch, we're getting close to our closing time. And so just wanted to basically reiterate. So one we heard was about guidelines, the sort of the norms that we have to follow. But the second is actually, in a country where we don't have any coal, we don't have any diesel, we don't have any petrol, to make this very quick shift to a hydropower, but then also rooftop solar, is really the logical way, for Nepal to go. But the other point that was made was that if you build a road, and if it is going to be washed away, because of deforestation or erosion, then I think it's, basically defeating the whole purpose. And so, it's really interesting when you think Nepal has a law that says if you cut down one tree, can you imagine you have to plant 25 more trees? So this is the law. And so 1,000 trees cut means 25,000 trees planted. But the value of those trees is that your infrastructure is going to last longer. So it's going to be basically safe. And so that's important. So this whole notion of, metrics, and what you mentioned about efficiency. So I think this whole notion that if we can do more with less, I think that would lead us, towards sustainability as well. So those kinds of, sort of number turning, or calculating and finding where we can cut corners in terms of sustainability, but especially in terms of direct costs like fuel or the energy that we use. So these would all be very critical. So what I wanted to do was not prolong this for too long because we do need to bring this to a close. So just quickly, is there anybody who has a real pressing question for these panelists? Yes, please. So the mic's all right. You think you are loud? Yeah. So make it a question. Don't make it a speech.
It would be a question because I've had my part of the speech.
Good.
Hello. Yeah. Thank you, Anil sir. So I think we've established that all the panelists up there are young leaders. And this question would go out to all, but to shorten the time, I'd like to direct it to Mr. Nicholas Pandey, because I also see him as one of my few mentors. So let's hear it from the mentor. So, Mr. Nicholas, so as a young leader and a lot of hopeful emerging young leaders, us down here, what do you see, in the next, say, 5-10 years that we should be doing together in a collaborative way, keeping in mind the construction industry of Nepal? What do you think the established young leaders and the emerging young leaders need to be doing together to make this a better industry in the next 20 years?
Good. So Nicholas, start, and then we'll pass it around. So just think of 2 or 3 things we need to do.
Can you repeat the question?
I think my young leader is having some trouble.
Yeah, that's what beauty queens in pageant do, right? When they have to think for an answer, they are ask the question again. No, Saurabh. I have to say I'm very fortunate. I have also been able to hold an office of Nepalese Young Entrepreneurs Forum as a national president some years back, many years back. So I've had a lot of opportunity of working with entrepreneurs of Nepal. So it is, like I said before as well, like a lot of young leaders, they are very concerned about the environment. I'm sure it's because of the exposure to a lot of technologies, I don't know, social medias and all that. But quite frankly, there is a huge gap between many contractors in Nepal. There is one, let's say, 100 numbers of contractors, and then there are these 200 or 300 numbers of contractors. There are a little falling behind those 100. And then there is another thousands of them who are falling much more behind the second block. So what I really think is like, this is a very traditional business in Nepal. We are still practicing construction very traditionally. So most of the contractors, they are like an entrepreneur, and they are doing by learning. Again, I'll have to represent my father here. So he started on his own 46 years back, and then he learned by himself, and he is where he is now. But now it falls onto us, because like infrastructure for a country like Nepal, unlike countries like Singapore, where you have already made a lot of infrastructure, but we are on the path of developing our nation. And just like China and India, we are investing a lot of money in infrastructure so that the rest of the industries can grow on the basis of that sustainable, on those strong infrastructure, not just for this industry, but the whole economy of Nepal. And leaders like Saurav and a lot of us sitting here, I think we have to have those best practices. Like this EYL right now is one of those stepping stones. We get to meet younger leaders like them, and then we learn from them, and we try to implement what they are implementing here. And there are a lot of programs I think we have to do from FCAN and all that to bring up the smaller contractors in Nepal, because at the end of today we need manpower, right? And these small, if you teach them how to manage their companies properly, how to manage their finance properly, how to manage their HR properly, and they have that kind of skill that we could use that skill as a joint venture partner or as a subcontractor, and that will create magic. And then we will be fast forwarding our industry and at the same time helping the economic growth of Nepal.
Very good. So any last thoughts? Please.
Just one, I think he missed a point, because I think a lot of emerging leaders here, probably we share, or a lot of us share the same thing. He missed, he said managing your HR, managing your people. I think he talked a lot about management, but I think the most important is managing your father. If you do not manage your father to let you manage or bring some management into the company early, you'll be too old and your son is going to tell you what to do.
Yeah.
Right? I think you've got to do that a bit earlier than later.
Mm-hmm. Very good.
I just want to add something. I think right now we have all the policies, guidelines, everything, and in a few years we will be in the position, hopefully all of us. And the thing for business to thrive and all the things we think of today and what we think for our country to do good, it all needs a proper environment. At the moment, I feel we lack a proper business environment, and we really need to make that, because we say we have FDI, we have one-stop solution for this, above 200 megawatts, we can get any FDI, but what is the percentage that is actually changing in reality? We see it's minimal, but this is all because of the environment that we don't have, and I think for the future generation and leaders, the challenge will be to create a business environment.
Very good. Yeah. Last final words.
I'll try to make it very short. I think we talk about how we can, within country, make it better for all of us. And I think this kind of platform whereby this afternoon we witnessed like, good presentation from other countries, and then emerging young leaders program. I think there could be a lot of, learning from each others. And, we really do not have a big building infrastructure or skyscrapers, and then, the technology transformation or technology learning, and then, joint hand between foreign and local contractors here, and coming up with better ideas to create a better infrastructure for all of us, and also taking this, not really depending upon the government to do it, and then but stepping ahead, and then trying to have a private collaboration, and then coming up with iconic and innovative projects can make lots of differences.
No, very good, very good. Okay, so I hope the room then realizes why these are young leaders, but also something that is an imperative. And so as we move forward, the demand for infrastructure is going to be huge, right? So 30 million people in Nepal is not a small country by any means. And so having these leaders sort of taking care of the environment, leading the sectors, but then like Nicholas mentioned, being able to bring more and more people into the fray. And so not 100 companies leading, but bringing everybody into these folds becomes very critical. But then creating an environment where everybody can succeed becomes also very important. So on that note, I'm going to hand it over to Sadisha and then bring this event to a close.
Thank you very much. Thank you to our moderator and to our panelists. Ladies and gentlemen, dear audience, would you please join me in giving them a big, big round of applause, I think, for this wonderful panel discussion. We'd like to start the presentation of certificates and token of appreciation. I would like to start with our keynote speaker. May I please invite our keynote speaker on stage, Ms. Nurain Jana, to kindly join us on stage, and may I please request Mr. Sushil to kindly join us on stage, and Mr. Edi Lama as well. If I may have the two gentlemen to kindly join us on stage to present this token of appreciation to our keynote speaker. Thank you very much to our keynote speaker for sharing her experience and also filling her keynote address with many reassuring words and inspiring words as well. Thank you very much. Now, may I please request Mr. Sushil Shrestha to present these certificates to our presenters from emerging young leaders who presented about various projects in their country. May I please invite Mr. Zarif to kindly join us on stage. From a rock star to a contractor, I think a very nice journey he's had, and definitely inspired many to explore other possible professional journeys that our audience can also maybe take. Thank you very much to Mr. Haq for sharing his thoughts as well. And from the Philippines Constructors Association, may I please invite Mr. Angelo to join us on stage, and we'd also like to thank him for his presentation. A lot to learn from what Philippines Constructors Association is doing, some great work that they're doing as well. May I also please invite on stage Mr. Chang from Taiwan General Contractor Association. I'd also like to invite Mr. Lee to kindly join us on stage as well. Ladies and gentlemen, a big, big round of applause to all our presenters as they get their token of appreciation. We'd like to invite Mr. Lee to kindly join us on stage as well, Mr. Eugene Lee. He also presented about the project that he has done, representing Taiwan General Contractor Association. May I also please invite on stage Mr. Saurav Sharma to kindly accept this certificate. Can I also invite Mr. Shia to kindly join us on stage? Thank you for that very interactive presentation that he did with our audience as well, engaging with them and asking them to give their inputs on what they thought about the future of construction and when it comes to sustainable infrastructure development as well. May I also please invite Mr. Ajan Dahal to kindly join us on the stage to accept this certificate of appreciation. Thank you very much, and thank you, Mr. Sushil Shrestha, President of YCNC, for doing the honors. May I please request Mr. Angdor Jilama, Senior Vice President FCAN, to kindly now present this token of appreciation to our panelists, who are very quietly and eagerly waiting for their turn, I believe. May I please invite on stage Mr. Nicholas Pandey to kindly accept this token of appreciation. Also like to request Mr. Anand Subedi to kindly join us on the front of the stage to accept this token of appreciation. We also express our gratitude towards Ms. Abhigya Malla and thank her for being a part of this panel and sharing her thoughts, and would like to request her to kindly accept this token of appreciation. May I please request Mr. Abhushan Jyoti Gangsakar to kindly accept this token of appreciation for being a part of this fantastic panel here at the 46th IFAWPCA convention happening in Kathmandu, Nepal. And we'd also like to thank our moderator and would like to request Mr. Anand Chitrakar to kindly come forward and accept this. I think the organizers would like to give you one more so they have it ready. One is enough, all right. So maybe a big round of applause then to our moderator for doing such a fantastic job. Thank you very much. I think we'd like to take a group photograph with all our panelists and moderators. Can I also request our Secretary General to kindly join us for this group photograph? A group photograph with not emerging young leaders, but the young leaders of today. So thank you to all of them for making their mark and for making the small and big changes towards a sustainable future and towards sustainable development. Ladies and gentlemen, as we come towards the end of day 2, for the closing remarks and vote of thanks, may I please invite on stage the first Vice President of YCNC, Mr. Basant Bahadur Chand, for the vote of thanks.
Good afternoon, esteemed guests, participants, and respected delegates. On behalf of the Youth Committee for Nepalese Contractors, YCNC, I am filled with gratitude as we draw the curtain on the Emerging Young Leaders program. It is my honor to deliver the vote of thanks in the midst of this intellectually stimulating gathering. I extend my heartfelt thanks to all of you who have played a role in the success of this significant event. First and foremost, a sincere appreciation to Mr. Ravi Singh, President of IFAWPCA and FCAN, for chairing the session. Special acknowledgement goes to E.R. Birendra Raj Pandey, Secretary General of IFAWPCA and past President of YCNC, for providing insightful briefings on this program, enriching our discussions with wisdom and experience. Special thanks to Engineer Sushil Kumar Shrestha, Board Member IFAWPCA and President of YCNC, for the welcome address. Our sincere appreciation goes to our keynote speaker, Ms. Noora Jana, whose enlightening address set the tone for today's vital conversations. Heartfelt thanks to our esteemed panelist, Mr. Nicholas Pandey, Mr. Anand Subedi, Ms. Abhigya Malla, and Mr. Abhushan Jyoti Kangsakar for sharing diverse perspectives and expertise, enriching our understanding and empowering tomorrow's leaders. I express my gratitude to Mr. Anil Chitrakar, our esteemed moderator, for skillfully guiding the panel discussion and facilitating a robust exchange of ideas. Your contribution has been invaluable to the success of the program. A sincere thank you to all the participants who presented detailed and informative insight through their presentation. As we bring this program to a close, my deepest appreciation goes to each one of you for being part of this journey. Thank you for your time, contribution, and dedication. At last, I would also like to wish our EMC, Ms. Sadisha Shrestha, wish you a very happy birthday, and enjoy. Thank you.
Thank you very much to Mr. Vasant Achand for the wish and for concluding our event. Yes, I celebrated my birthday with all of you. And now time is up as we conclude. Thank you very much to each and every one of you for making Day 2 here at the 46th IFAWPCA convention. Really, really insightful, very engaging as well. And we're extremely excited to welcome all of you at Day 3. As we wrap Day 2, we hope that you find some time to make new friends and mingle around with each other. I hope all of you have a great, great evening ahead. Thank you very much and have a good evening.